While there are some people that may be concerned about the origins of Halloween and its focus on blood, death, horror, and the occult, to millions of youngsters across the nation it has been adopted as a time to pursue scary fun. It is an opportunity to dress up in ghoulish or fanciful costumes, to engage in the fantasy of being a witch, vampire, ghost, or devil. Eager trick-or-treaters solicit candy door to door, or bob for apples at Halloween parties. Others brave haunted houses or horror movie marathons, while the more daring visit cemeteries at midnight, play with Ouija boards, and hold seances in an effort to contact spirits of the dead. What is commonly known as Halloween is called, in the occult world, Samhain. Samhain, according to occult tradition, was the lord of the dead. Around 900 BC, a very fierce nomadic people came into the areas of what is known to be Gaul, Saxony, Brittany. We know it now as the British Isle, and of course eventually went to Scotland, Ireland, and the rest of the surrounding areas. These people were known as Celts. The Celtic people were so fierce and so barbaric that twice they held off the famous Roman legion and extracted heavy tribute from Rome itself. They literally held all power from 900 BC to approximately 900 AD in that area. The Celtic lord of the dead, Samhain, is just another name for Nimrod. Samhain, like Nimrod, is also a stag god. He has horns, just like Baphomet, the stag god that is so constant in the occult world. Everyone thinks of Halloween as just a one-night thing, October 31st, but it is not. In the occult world, it is a 3-day fire festival. It lasts from the 29th through the 31st and is called Samhain after the Lord of the Dead. In Great Britain, Druids were priests that held great power. During this time, you couldn't get married without their permission. You couldn't hold any type of official title in the clan without their permission. You couldn't even attend any of their religious ceremonies without their permission. They literally held power over all life and death. During the nights of Samhain, the Druids would gather at gigantic megalithic stone circles. The most commonly known of these is Stonehenge. In the time of the Druids, Stonehenge served 3 specific functions. First of all, it was a temple complex. Second of all, it served as an astrological observatory. And third, it served as a place of human sacrifice. Archaeologists have already unearthed, underneath Stonehenge, over 4,000 human skeletal remains. And that is just under Stonehenge. There are hundreds of these structures throughout the British Isles. It is not well known that Stonehenge is small compared to some of the others. The one in Asbury is over a mile in circumference. Consider so many remains under such a small structure, then multiply that by X amounts of hundreds of these stone circles, and an understanding begins to be reached of what the Druids were all about and why they were so greatly feared by the common folk. During the time of Samhain, the Druids would meet at Stonehenge. They had a giant cauldron, a black pot, that they would fill with what could be best described as an apple cider-like substance. They would light the pot, and then all the Druid priests would go throughout the countrysides to various mansions, to castles, to people of nobility such as earls, marquises, dukes, and the like. They would walk up to the front door of these places and yell out, "Trick or treat." Trick or treat, a 2-part expression that literally sent waves of panic throughout the people who heard it. For if the lord of the manor cooperated with the Druids, he would take one of his servants or one of his household members, or even someone of his own family, and pass them over to the Druids to be used as a human sacrifice offering that night. Then the Druids would leave the Lord a treat for his cooperation. They would take a pumpkin that was previously hollowed out and filled with human fat, and leave it on the front doorstep and light it. This served as a ward of protection from all the demonic forces that would be unleashed that night. However, if the Lord did not cooperate with the Druids, they would get the trick. The Druids would take blood from a dead body that they had actually been dragging around and paint the six-pointed star with the circle around it. This is known as a hexagram, from the Latin hexare, for six. The hexagram is one of the foulest and most evil symbols in all of the occult world, a symbol used for summoning a demon to this plane of existence. Druids would paint the hexagram in human blood on the front door of those who got the trick. Then, on one of those nights, someone in that house would die because of the demonic forces that were summoned. Later, the Druids would all return to Stonehenge. Once they arrived, they would put the people they took into wicker cages. One particular cage is of great interest. A week before Samhain began, they would send the Celtic warriors out throughout the countryside, where they would gather up thousands of these wicker reeds. Once they brought them back, they formed a giant wicker man. The wicker man looked something similar to this, and is the predecessor to the famous Burning Man that is burnt each year in the art festival by that same name in the Black Rock Desert, Nevada. It stood approximately 25 to 30 feet in height and was made up of intercrossing wicker reeds to form a human effigy. This would usually be 2 to 3 levels in height and have cages all throughout it. The Druids, once they brought back all their human sacrifice offerings from trick-or-treating, would throw them into those cages and tie them up. If by some chance they ran out of space in the wicker man, they had other square cages, also made out of wicker, that they had prepared as well. Now, this is where the Druids would have their version of Halloween fun. They would take approximately 12 prisoners, 12 people, who were going to be used as human sacrifice offerings, and line them up in a single row in front of the black cauldron filled with the boiling cider. They would take an apple and throw it into that cauldron and say, "If you can take that in between your teeth on the first try, you will be set free immediately." There was only one problem, though. That cauldron had been boiling away for 4 to 5 hours. The boiling temperature of the liquid is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Who would try it? If the prisoners didn't try, they would end up as a human sacrifice anyway. This sick game was their only way out. Most took the chance, but with dire consequences. After they plunged their heads into the boiling liquid, their faces, their necks, and even their chests and backs literally melted away so that they would be permanently disfigured and unrecognizable. Many of them went blind because the 212-degree liquid burnt away their eyes. Many ended up as partially or permanently deaf because of the damage that was done to their ear canal. Many could never speak again because of the damage done to their mouths and respiratory systems due to the hot liquid. What a cute game. If a person really did grab that apple on the first try, the Druids held to their promise and they let them go. Some life after that. But if you didn't get the apple, they would throw you on the ground and behead you right there on the spot. Samhain is the highest night of human sacrifice on the occult calendar. The reason is because this is a time of the year that is known as a crossroad. It ends the old year and begins the new one. All crossroads in the occult are sacred. Another example of a crossroad would be where the beach ends and the ocean begins. That's considered a sacred spot, just as all crossroads in the occult are sacred. During this time of year, it is believed that those souls that had died from long ago could cross over and visit their loved ones for the night. But nothing guaranteed that these spirits would be benevolent. In order to keep these spirits in line, the Druids made hideous masks and decorated their robes with all types of occult symbols to control these spirits that they knew were demonic. These masks were the origin of the Halloween costume worn today. So, why do so many Christians celebrate Halloween today? And where does the word Halloween come from? Well, early in the rise of the Catholic Church, missionaries were sent all over the known world to convert the pagan peoples. But these missionaries soon found out that steering the public away from paganism would not be easy. Pagans were not interested in Catholicism. They did not believe in the idea of having one God or monotheism, since they worshipped many pagan deities. So the Catholics found a way to make their religion more attractive to pagan worshippers. Over time, they grafted the practices of pagan religions onto Catholicism. It was Pope Gregory III who turned the most important pagan holiday, Samhain, into a day of the Church. November 1st was claimed as All Saints' Day, a day to honor those Catholic saints who did not already have a Saints' Day of their own. The All Saints' Day is also known as All Hallows' Day. It was the eve of All Hallows that became known as All Hallows' Evening or Halloween. When many of the Protestant religions broke away from the Catholic Church, they didn't break away from its bloodthirsty and perverse occult holidays. This is why parents who claim to live a life of goodness and Christianity will gleefully teach their children to emulate ancient evil religious practices. So, what will you teach your children?